Mesdames et messieurs, nous commencerons dans environ 1 ou 2 minutes au grand maximum. I will start in about 1 or 2 minutes. Commissioner Littlechild is on his way.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me apologize for my being late. I really sincerely apologize, but it was a matter really unavoidable. I know it doesn't perhaps explain it fully, but so let's get underway with Linda David Cree. Linda David Cree, could you come up with your support as well? Is Linda here? Okay, thank you. Elizabeth Otter Eyes, please be ready. Whenever you're ready, Linda. Excuse me.
Sego, I'm here to speak for my grandfather, Gaherodu Daniel Peter Nicholas, who attended the industrial school at Chinook Home. He was born on April the 1st, 1898, and attended with his brothers Mackay and Ernest. He spent half a day in school and half a day in labor. Ernest, the younger brother, is one of the missing children from Ganasadage. Ernest never came home, and it is important for me and my family that we all understand and know about Chinook Industrial Home. At Chinook, the people there enlisted my grandfather into the Second World War without his parents' consent. We have a picture of him that survived through our family. And I have been researching a lot in the archives on what had happened and who had signed him up. But fortunately, our grandfather, great-grandfather, Darita Nicholas, went up and got him and brought him back home. So there are two things. Why is the industrial school signing up children for World War I? And where is our great-uncle Ernest? Why do I come and spend the time to tell you about my dada? Because he was just one of 150 children from Ganasadage Mohawk Territory taken to the Chinook Industrial Home in Sault Ste. Marie. Dada Dan died in 1967 and could no longer tell his story or all of the happy and sad events of his life. The only time I remember him crying is when he spoke about going back to Chinook to find his brother Ernest. He cried for his little brother, who was only 7 years old, and died from drowning in the river that flows past Chinook home. My grandfather told me of the basement where the school punished bad children, tied them up to the beams that ran along the ceiling as they hung there. They were whipped. He said he was hungry all the time, but the tears were for Ernest. I don't believe that he told us the more ugly stories of the home. He numbed that with periodic drinking bouts. We share the story of my Dada because he was a loved human being. He made axe handles and paddles for sale. He said he was a better cook than our Dada Lina. He laughed easily and hid the pain from the family. He used his cane to smack our bare feet and asked if our parents had given us shoes because he had none as a child in the winter and wrapped rags around his feet. Smack, put on your shoes, he'd tell us. Yes, it is important to know and to understand the ongoing trauma created in the wake of Indian residential schools. The children were not just statistics. They came from families that loved them, and it is our duty to carry on and ensure that their memories about the degradation, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual abuse never die, but are remembered within our families and our communities. Following the Oka crisis in Ganasadaga, I was invited with 2 other Mohawk women from Ganasadaga to witness the Chinook residential school survivors and share their painful stories over a 3-day period in around 1997. Personally, I came from the witnessing feeling battered and abused and emotionally a wreck. I carry those stories with me today, along with the tears of my Dada, and feel very honored by the dignity and strength shown by all of the survivors of the industrial homes and the residential schools. The importance of knowing about and understanding the residential schools' impact and the ongoing intergenerational trauma intentionally inflicted upon thousands of young, defenseless Indigenous children, their families, and their communities must be known by everyone in Canada. The history of the Indian residential school experiment was genocidal. The intention was to kill the languages, cultures, traditional and ceremonial knowledge and histories of our nations. How can Canada and Indigenous peoples establish new relations is the question. Teach the history of Indian residential homes and residential schools in all mainstream high schools, colleges, and universities. As with the Northwest Territories and Nunavut, who have passed mandatory laws for this to happen. Let it be known internationally. And lastly, to answer the question, what does reconciliation mean to you? And how will we know when reconciliation has taken place? Reconciliation means that from this point on, all of my descendants will live in peace, where they will never have to wonder if they will lose the small remnants of their homelands to Canadian, provincial, municipal, or corporate greed. Collectively, Indigenous peoples in Canada have only 0.2% of their homelands left, and Canada wants that too. Reconciliation means that this government stop playing God. They will cease and desist with all legislation that leads to termination of our people's rights and the sacred trust found in our peace and friendship treaties. That the government of Canada stop with their planned final solution to legislate Indigenous education. That is, in my estimation, a final plan to cultural genocide. When you starve Indigenous communities, withhold essential resources for education, health, housing, etc., desperate, willing partners will sign on so their people and their children will not starve. When will this happen? For me, it is when the racist papal bulls are revoked and denounced, when our languages, cultures, traditional knowledge are acknowledged, respected, and taught in our schools and communities with the same resources and support that French and English minority language receives in Canada. When Indigenous peoples receive a fair share of the wealth from our own resources, our people should not have to leave their communities to find jobs, housing, and quality lifelong education. When Canada can stand before the United Nations, such as the Universal Periodic Review, and report that they have accepted 68 recommendations from member states and not partially reject 22 and completely reject 14 recommendations, rejections in areas such as Indigenous rights, racial discrimination, and fighting poverty. Indigenous peoples have a right to be consulted on these recommendations. When Canada can vote yes in Parliament rather than no to a motion that asks them to abandon its confrontational approach to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in favor of a nation-to-nation dialogue, that they commit to make treaty implementation as well as settlement and land claims a priority, when they begin negotiations in good faith with Nunatutkavut Community Council. Most importantly, when many of our peoples unlearned cultural self-hatred and lateral violence taught by Indian residential schools and now perpetuated in our communities. Nyawakoa, I submit this on behalf of my brothers and sisters, Walter, Daniel, Denise, Joseph, who is deceased, Nick, Marie, Valerie, and I would like to submit this into the box to honor my grandfather. Nyawa.
Thank you very much. Now we'll call forward Elizabeth Otterize and then ask Abraham Bearskin to be ready, please. Elizabeth?
First, I want to give the gift to my two traditional sisters to listen to my story and hear what happened. I invited also my grandson to hear my story, to what happened to his kukum long, long time ago. Gwe, Waja, Gigi, and Singashan. That was the only name I knew for about 8 years. That name was given to me by my grandmother who raised me. Gigi means baby. So that is my Cree name. But the government gave me a Christian name. It's so long, it took me almost 3 years to pronounce my English name. I was almost 6 years old when I was torn away in the arms of my grandmother. I hang on to her tight, not knowing why this big, big thing that came in the water and the man that stood would take me. Where I lived in my reserve, I played along the river. I played around tall grasses, went in the bush with my grandmother. But torn away on that August day was the first day I knew fear. I never knew fear when I was in my reserve. We were 3 little girls, 3 children, to roam and run. Our hair blowing in the wind. So I went to school 2 years in Moose Factory, Ontario, from 53 to 54. After that, they sent me to Sault Marie, Chinook, from 1955 to 1963. I will share you 2 stories when I first went to school. I thought this would be easy. I can't seem to find the words in my memory. But I know I had a number. I was number 31. And I knew I had a Christian name, but I never understood my number or my Christian name. The supervisor would come up to me, 6-year-old girl, slap me in the face, punch me in the head. I don't know what she said. Then she would throw the clothes at me. This happened for a couple of months. Then there was a girl that lived in Moose Factory. She told me, if you can't understand your name, listen carefully for your number. It's 31. So every time I did something, I would always repeat in my head, 31, 31. So next time the next week rolled around and I heard that number, I knew that was me, 31. And I would go up and collect my clothes. After some time, I was there in a school. I don't even know if it was a school. I don't remember. It might have been a big house. But anyway, a couple months, the supervisor would take me by the hand and take me in this room, the size of a closet. She would say something I didn't understand. She'd close the door and turn the light off. And there I sat in silence. And I tried to remember my name, my Christian name, but it wouldn't come to mind. She did that for quite a while. I would be put in there after breakfast while all the others went to school, taken out for lunch, and be put back there at 1 till the rest of the kids came back. I never knew why they did this to me my first year of school and Moose Factory. To this day, I'm scared to be in a little room. I used to wonder, my kids, when they went to the bathroom, they would take a book and be almost there for half an hour or an hour. How could they be so long in such a little room? When I was a little girl, I was so frightened. Even elevators, I was frightened because it was a small room. I would think that I might not be able to come out. So I'll share you a story on number 31. 31 followed me all through my teenage life. I had that number when I went to school, like I said. Then after, when I was transferred to the other school, we had to fill out an application, and there it asked the question, what is your band number? I never knew what my band number was. I had to write to the Indian Affairs. I told them they're asking me my band number. I would like to know. The letter came back it said Wasanipi number 31. That was the number that was given to my dad, which was passed on to his children until they were of age. So as I grew into a woman, married, my first son was born July 31. My best friend was born July 31. So when they made Wasanipi a community around 1978, 1980, we returned to the community with my parents. So most of us moved into his house, and we lived in 31 Pine. That number again followed me. So the last year in our community, when we had our last, what do you call it, the last reunion for healing process, I spoke about my number 31. So I told them, I'm waiting in the future for number 31 to come up. I said, maybe later I'll hit a jackpot number 31 million. So that's my story at that school. But like everybody's story, when I went to Chinook, I was physically abused by this one certain supervisor for 4 years. She really made my life miserable. I used to have nightmares on what she did. The pupils that I went to school with, that we were in that dorm, can recall a lot of the stuff that she did to me in front of the girls. But there's one thing I could never forgive her. We used to get letters from back home. This was sometime in February. I had a letter. They would open our letters, and they would black out sentences that they didn't want us to know. So that's what happened to my letter. It was all blacked out. I never knew the message till I got home that my grandmother had died. I asked around, where's Kukum? Nobody seemed to know where Kukum was. We don't know. Maybe she died at a hospital. We don't know. Because I was raised by my grandmother. Even to this day, I think and I believe in my heart she's still living. When I look at older women and almost can say and think, oh, that must be my Kukum. Because they had knowledge, they had wisdom when they talked. There was one story I wanted to really share. It's very hard for me to forgive her. And like everybody else, in order to pass all this stuff that happened to me, I too started to write poems. I would write short stories. I'm almost finished my book. I don't know who I'm going to give it to. It's called This Is My Story, Chi-Chi. So I'd like to share one of the poems I wrote that helped me very much to forget what happened. I wrote this poem, and I dedicated it to my mother. I never knew my mother, but she was alive. I respected her as a mother. I lived with her after Kukum died. She had cancer, my mother, and I kept her in the bush 7 years. Doctor sent her home to die, but she lived 7 years. I took her in the bush. So I'd like to share this poem that I wrote and dedicated to my mother. It's called When. When will this shame within me leave? When will the hurt and pain be gone? When will these nightmares of past fade away? When will I have joy and laughter? When will I find love and hope in this broken spirit? When? It's now. Stand up, speak up, release it from within your soul. Be free now. Written August 11, 2004, dedicated to my mother, Clara Grant Otterice, who passed on August 11, 2003, after 60 years finally free from the past of residential school. Miigwech. I have 2 pieces of papers that I wrote down of my 2 brothers that went to residential school that have passed on. I want them to be remembered. My first one, his name was Billy Otterice, went to school, and Moose Factory was a good hockey player. Maybe he would have made it in the National League Hockey. Died in the reserve Wassanipi, 2002. My other brother passed on. His name was Harry Otterice, went to school in Chinook, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Liked to hunt, even when he was in school. Later expelled, killed too much chicken, died February 21, 1999. So I'd like to put this in the box.
Thank you very much, Gigi. Good. could we also have a copy of your poem? Your poem?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could we have a copy of that as well, please? Thank you. Thank you. May we now hear from Abraham Bearskin, and then Catherine Lambert, or Catherine Lambert. I'm not sure which the pronunciation will be. Abraham?
My name, my grandfather gave me Miapanashkum. In my language, it means he who brings new life. What I want to share starts before residential school. I was taken away 1958. About 2 years before that, something happened to me. But in my own family. I might have been around 6. You know, it's nice to talk about the land. The land is a healer, I was told by elders. You're close to the Creator. But something happened. Was confusing for me. And that came within my family. I was incest, molested. That happened in a camp. That kind of broke, the happiness I had within me. it hurt. It hit it hard, deep in my spirit. Just that's when I felt fear. You know, when you crawl up, like a baby, you don't want anyone to touch you. So that fear was already in me. I couldn't really get close to my mom. But it wasn't the one. It was one of my aunts that have gone to a school before me. You know that in 1958, it continued in the school. One time, I was in my bed. I don't know, maybe in the middle of the night or late at night. Somebody woke me up. I felt somebody behind me. Next thing, I remember I was naked, waist down. This time it was a man. Again, that fear came. You know, I'd heard it. You know, I've been in 3 schools: St. Philip's, Fort George, in my own community that happened. Was factory, Letuk was worse. I don't know how many times you get raped. You know, things confused me. I was confused if I was two-spirited or if I didn't know. I first drank when I was 15 years old. I tried to run away. A few of my friends that were more or less in the same path, same experience, are long gone. Either through suicide, they shot themselves. One boy I know became a serial killer. Killed 3 people in our own reserve. No, that sticks with you. I fought back when I was 15. I tried to protect others, and I rebelled at 17. I had planned it, everything. I said, by 21, I'll end my life. So I had all this plan. I had no respect, really, for anybody. We did things too in the schools. I didn't know better. A lot of times I wanted to end my life through alcohol, drugs. There's drugs I took that more or less to ease the pain. I was lost. I didn't really, one point I didn't really care about Native tradition or my own culture or the culture of the other societies. I sit here for my mother, my dad, my grandparents. I really feel apology should be given to them, to my parents. I don't know how many times I got raped. You know, when the compensation came, I didn't file right away. I didn't feel good even after the EIP. Even this second time around, for sexual abuse, I didn't feel to get the compensation, the money. I wanted my life back. But in the 89, late 80s, that's when I started to do my own healing. I took myself to a treatment center. I went to fast. I danced at the Sundance. You know, for me, speaking for myself, I did things too that hurt others, women or other people, intentionally and unintentionally. I wanted to give back the hurt. It didn't matter who it was or what race. But in 1989, that changed. I've been on the healing path since. I think I was one of the first Cree that spoke in a gathering in Waswanipi, talk about my own sexual abuse. I remember a friend of mine bringing water. I couldn't really speak, but he brought water to me, and that helped. I remember one time I wrote letters. It wasn't just me, there were others telling people I trust what happened, what was happening in the school. I don't know if those letters ever got to those people. Like the speaker before me, whenever you receive letters or write, you are open or pre-read. I wrote this about a year ago to help me. I have 52 seconds. Out of nothing, I became a spirit, a body, a mind, feeling and being created. In the void, I formed, gradually becoming one with Nishiya, Great Spirit. Something strange happening. A tiny beat I hear. What is this strange sound? I have heard this beat long before. The beat sounds so familiar. What is this I feel? So gentle, warm, but so strong. It is so soothing. I felt this same sense of feeling long ago. I see now. It is water, it is air, it is fire. I'm life, formed from vortex. Life is brooding. I'm life. Water, air, fire is me. It is the Creator, Great Spirit. I am. I hear a voice. What is this voice I hear? Nishiya. Yes, Nishiya is formed. I am that I am. I move about. I explore. I move within. Oh yes, in Him I move and exist. We form and come as one. I feel the heartbeat, same as mine. Whose heartbeat I know? It is my heartbeat with my mother. Wait, yet I feel another drumbeat. Yes, my father. My father died in 2005. All three heartbeats are all one. I see it is one drum, a secret drum, both male and female. This is my strength. Strength given as a gift from the Creator. His strength I feel. He is my strength. I am fed spiritual foods and drink spiritual fluids. I am anxious now. I move again with my strength. I move about. Now I'm ready to see another world. I now make a lot of movement. My mother knows. I hear the heartbeat getting louder. Breathe, I ask, fire in my being. Now I come and see a new transformation taking place. Now I have come to this world. I hear, I cry. The air strong, the fire so warm. These are my elements, water, air, fire. I am that I am. I'm Nishia. Miabanoshkum. Wisdom has arrived. I am that I am. Wisdom has arrived. I wrote this so I could connect to the time of my birth, to renewal, my path. This I leave with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Abraham. Now could we call on Catherine? Catherine Lambert. And then Jack Miller. Could you be ready, please?
I attended Shubenacadie Residential School in Nova Scotia. I am 55 years old, and I am from a family of 12. I am from New Brunswick, Burnchurch, Escanobridge. I just turned 7 years old when they sent me away to residential school. I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know what that was, but when I realized that a car was going to come to pick me up, I ran. I knew it wasn't good. They were going to take me away, so I ran away into the woods. I was there for a while before before they found me. And they put me on the cart, and that is the time that I had to leave my parents and the rest of my siblings behind. When I first entered the school, what they did was they put me in a room. They cut off all my hair. I had long hair, and I still have today. But when I arrived there, they chopped it all off, and they stripped me of my clothes and showered me, and they gave me a set of clothes that everybody else wore. They gave me a number also. So that was like I was in prison. I was sent to an institution because that's where you get numbers and you wear the same clothes. I was forced, the first time I had went to the cafeteria where all the other children ate. I was forced to eat their food. I didn't like their food, what they had given me, because I was too used to my own food that my mom had prepared. So I threw up. I threw it up because they told me I had to eat it. And when I threw up, they forced the vomit back into my mouth. There was a lot of abuse that went on. There was a lot of physical, sexual, and psychological abuse, and verbal abuse. Some things I remember that what the nuns did to me, they pulled my ears whenever I didn't listen to instructions sometime. I got pulled by the ears. One of the nuns used to lift me up from the floor. She would grab my cheeks, and I was lifted off the floor. I had a lot of strappings, numerous strappings throughout my stay there. They tried to teach me piano, and when the nun lost patience and I made mistakes, she banged the door on my fingers. I would get slapped in the face when I would try to avoid the strappings, and the nun would slap the strap on herself instead. We were not allowed to use the bathroom at night. We were not allowed water when we were thirsty. We would have to wet the bed. And when we did wet the bed, well, I did also, and I thought to avoid punishment, I would have to hide the bedding. But of course, I couldn't hide it good enough. They knew. And then I was strapped many times for that. My parents never came to visit. It was too far for them. They couldn't afford it anyway. I didn't get letters from anyone at home. I wondered why, but there was a lot of students that said afterwards that they didn't give you your mail. When you did get mail, they kept it from you. So I felt I was abandoned and I would never see my parents again. There were times when we would be forced to play outside, no matter how cold the temperature. It would be freezing and they wouldn't let us in. They wouldn't let us in until time had passed. I don't know how long. It seemed too long anyway for a child to be outside in the freezing weather. One incident, they took us out to the lake to go swimming. And the ones that should have been supervising us, I guess they weren't right there. And then I almost drowned. I went under. And a friend had to save me. Still today, I don't know how to swim. There was one friend that mentioned just a little while back that she said, I would always see you coming down them stairs. You were crying. You were always crying. You were a very sad little girl. But that's the times I don't even remember, but she remembered because we used to hang out and play. She kind of knew who I was. They destroyed many of us as children. We were never the same. Some of us might have overcome some difficulties, but a lot of us still have that pain today. My life of residential school was tough. We were never really accepted back in our community because other kids thought we were special because we came from somewhere far from our community. We only spoke English and they thought we were too good for them. Little did they know what trauma we went through. We were abused. The pains that priests and nuns inflicted upon us was so horrendous. I felt shame and degradation. I had no self-esteem. I lacked confidence. I felt dirty. As I grew older, I accepted abuse as the norm. I didn't know much difference because as a child, this is what I was taught. We were supposed to be loved as children, but there was no love at all, only hurt. The sisters hurt our feelings and hurt us physically. They tried to break our spirits. They beat the culture and language out of us. But what I had left was my spirit. The spirit to survive, to make it out of there alive, because many didn't go home. They didn't get out of there alive. As I grew older and had my own children, I could never say I love you enough to them. Maybe I didn't even say I love you. I couldn't hug them. I had difficulties parenting because those skills were lost by the separation of my parents and siblings. While we were in residential school, my parents separated, and I returned home. When I returned home, there was only my mom. She was a single parent, taking care of 12 children. Sometimes I blame my mom, but then I understood what she went through also. She had had a nervous breakdown. I didn't know what that was, but I guess today we call it meltdown, whatever. Some of my other siblings were brought to foster homes. They didn't have to go to Shubenacadie, but there was 4 of us that were sent off to residential school. Today and during the past, I feel that I have trouble with authority figures, because I was told what to do and say when I was a child from the age of 7 to 9. As I grew older, I couldn't stand for anyone telling me what to do. That is probably why I didn't last in a job in a non-Native community. I was always told what to do, and today I can't stand being told what to do. I have 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. And I realize now that there was the intergenerational effects. It affected their lives too. Today my health is not what it could be. I went through depression, anxiety attacks. I have high blood pressure. I'm on blood thinners, and I have diabetes. There was times when I contemplated suicide. One time I took an overdose. I landed in the hospital. But I thought about my children, and after that I couldn't try it again. I said I can't do that to them. Although I turned to alcohol on some occasions, I couldn't continue on that course because I had children and I had to stop before it became a problem. And that was the only reason, is because of my children. But I did that for the pain that I felt. I entered into a relationship, and it wasn't a healthy relationship. It was abusive. Well, I got married, and it was an abusive relationship, and I suffered and my children suffered. I know today that I shouldn't have stayed in it, but I was not well. For many years, I did not understand why I was like what I was or how I am today. But as I talked to a therapist and attended meetings about IRS, then I am slowly understanding some things that have happened throughout my life and why. I am only starting my healing journey, but I am stronger. I would say to young people today, don't be ashamed of your culture or language. Be proud of your language and culture. It will make you stronger and guide you through for a better balance in your life. We are healing from residential schools and becoming stronger, yet we have hit another brick wall. We are being moved backwards by the federal government. They are passing all these bills that are slowly taking away our rights and treaties. For example, the omnibus bills, the C-45, etc. They are forcing young people to take training in order to qualify for welfare. They are forcing our leaders to sign agreements which will erode our treaties. Our Indian Affairs Minister is disrespecting our leaders and First Nations people. He is arrogant and ignorant of our problems. He simply does not care. I have met face-to-face with him and argued with him. He asked me, "Are you Canadian?" I said, "No, I am First Nation." How can we First Nation people move on with political leaders like that? We are forced to go to court to get back what is rightfully ours. We continually win in court cases, but they appeal. When will it stop? We have fought for many years to get to this point. Now we have to continue to fight. We are oppressed by our own governments and non-Native peoples, and today we are oppressed by our own First Nation leaders. What has the world come to? We must rise above what we have endured and still are enduring today. I love all our First Nations people and Canadians that understand our plight. Idle no more.
May I now call up Jack Miller, please, and then Edward Chilton.
Good afternoon. My name is Jack Miller. I was born in Three Rivers, Trois-Rivières, so I'm a trifluvian. I'm a member of the United Church of Canada. My mother was an Anglican, born in England, and I went to an Anglican residential school. I am married to a beautiful lady who was once a Roman Catholic novitiate. She was in a nunnery for a while. My father, born in Canada, was of Scottish heritage, so there are some Presbyterians in the Métis. I'm here today with some trepidation after listening to the stories, but I want to offer you hope. And I want to tell you that the work of the Commission may be ending, but your stories are only the beginning. Lawyers, I'm one myself, they organize a settlement of a legal case, a class action. The way the law works is that the remedy at common law is damages, it's money. So that's why the claims are expressed in money, and they result in money. At the time that this was all going through, I was the assisting Grand Chief Stephen Lindsay Bonspiel, the Grand Chief of the Mohawk Council of Kanesatake, who had a number of matters on his mind, and one of which was that he wanted a behavior change. And so he protested or appeared and attempted to object, and he was just brushed aside. And the reason he was objecting was he wanted the behavior to change. And yes, there should be some financial compensation, but he wanted, basically, he wanted the oppression to come to an end, period. And he was not listened to, shall we say. So here we are today. Now, I do want you to know that quite a few of your brothers and sisters, notably Mohawk ironworkers, have launched a peace initiative. And this has been launched now and in progress for a number of years. And it has resulted in many things, but one is a call on behalf of the Mohawk Nation and Aboriginal peoples in Canada to the government of Canada to enter into a dialogue. Now, I have been at the core of the reform of the justice system in Quebec and to some extent Ontario. I'm an Ontario lawyer as well. And the justice system has been radically reformed. However, many judges and lawyers have not gotten the message. This reform took place or started about 1989 when a very diverse group got together, and that group included the Eastern Door of the Iroquois Confederacy, to figure out, to redesign the justice system, and which is what we did, through various steps that resulted in the Quebec National Assembly amending the Code of Civil Procedure of Quebec to introduce dialogue. Dialogue would be, let's work things out in a way that's respectful and makes sense, as opposed to the confrontational approach. So I have a few questions I want to ask. I don't want to hear anybody say that anything's impossible, because here I am speaking to you in 7 languages and in, I think, fluent Mohawk. To the churches, I want to say, you have betrayed Christ. Thank you. I think that Christ was an Aboriginal person, by the way. So my question to the churches is, my own church, the United Church of Canada, but the other churches too, is when are you going to apologize to your adherents? When are you going to do that? You've apologized to the people, the Aboriginal people in the schools that you have harmed, but when are you going to apologize to your own adherents? To the government, you have made a legal settlement, but what exactly have you resolved? I don't think they've resolved very much, and this is just the beginning. To the prime ministers, including Prime Minister Martin, who was here, I think, yesterday, may even be in the room today, I don't know. Why do you not include all the Aboriginal peoples of Canada? Why do you only deal with some of them and not all of them? Question mark. The message is, I asked folks that I've been working with for quite a while now, I said, well, I have 15 minutes. What do you want me to say? So I got a very long list. And here are some of the suggestions. Educate, build affordable housing, respect the treaties, clean the water, protect the land, be clear, be practical, end violence against women and girls. So, by the way, we're going to do all of that. We're going to do all of the foregoing. But the main message I want to leave with you this afternoon is that there is a silver ship of democracy that has set sail and is sailing and will be coming to your community or coming again to your community. We, the people, will no longer tolerate abuse. We will be idle no more. Now, I don't want to say things to you that you already know. For example, you know that the abuse of Aboriginal peoples is abuse of French-speaking peoples. You know that they are brothers and sisters. And I'm sure that the minorities will not endlessly accept the rule of the majority. We have to move from the politics of division to the politics of consensus, from debate to dialogue. Recently, a lot of attention has been focused on the cases of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The House of Commons voted 278 to 0 to end that violence and to address the root causes. So that's probably one of the finest moments in the history of the Parliament of Canada, I would think. However, the committee has had its third meeting, and it's off to a bit of a rocky start because the committee, which is has 12 members, and the majority are from the government, were told by a lot of people that they must meet and work with the families of these people, that are ones that have been killed and are missing and murdered. And this, so far, is not happening. So we're at a bit of a moment of truth here, but this ship, this silver ship, is going forward anyway. And we're going to go to the people. That's what we're going to do. Now, I want you to know that something you might not know, that a structured dialogue works. Not a debate about who's right and who's wrong, but a search for justice based upon the truth. So, for example, the stories that have been told, and not all the stories have been told, by the way, there are many stories that have not been told, they raise issues and questions. And those issues and questions must be addressed. Now, they're very, very tough questions. For example, we have to address poverty. How do we do that? It's going to require our best minds. Everybody has to be on the same page, bringing their minds to bear on how we're going to do that. Now, a very good place to start by empowering the people who have been abused is to recognize their treaty rights. They are, speaking for myself here, they are our friends and partners. That's who they are. They're not people who are lobbying for this or lobbying for that or whatever. They are our friends and partners, and I think that there's no doubt at this moment in time that we share the common heritage of treaties, but I believe that they're actually an integral part of the Constitution of Canada. So those values of peace, respect, and friendship, they are fundamental to Canada. Now, we want to spend some time, because people need to understand actually what our Constitution is. We don't need a new Constitution, we just need to understand what it is. However, where we want to get to is we want to put our energies on solving these tough questions. And the consensus that's emerged in a wide range of circles is education is critical. Now, the government does not have a lot of credibility when it comes to education, and nor do the churches. The people who have credibility is you, the Aboriginal people of Canada. That's who needs to determine the education system for you. And I think what you're going to find is that when you address the education that you would like to have for your kids, and also us adults, by the way, require education too, you're going to find that a lot of people are going to be very interested in what you have to say, because not a whole lot of people are satisfied with our education system in Canada today. So actually, I think it's going to be very empowering for the knowledge that was suppressed to be brought forward and validated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack Miller. And now we call forward Edward Chilton, please.
Great.
OK. Merci de m'avoir donné l'occasion de parler ici. Mon nom, c'est Édouard, je viens de Wemontashi, je suis un Atikamek. J'ai 63 ans. Puis à peu près 12-13 ans de ma vie que je ne connais pas. Parce que j'ai été à peu près 12 ans dans 2 pensionnats différents. Ça veut dire que je suis parti de la maison, j'avais à peu près 6 ans. Quand on m'a pris, j'étais avec mes parents à la station en train d'attendre le train, puis là c'est là que je suis parti. J'avais 6 ans. Puis quand je suis parti, D'habitude, nous autres, on prenait le train pour aller au pensionnat. On s'en allait en Abitibi, à Amos. Puis quand je suis parti la première fois, c'est la première fois aussi que je prenais le train sans ma mère, sans mon père, mes frères et sœurs. J'étais tout seul à prendre le train. Qu'est-ce qui est arrivé? Avant que je prenne le train, là, c'est tous ceux-là qui étaient inscrits sur la liste, il fallait qu'ils partent au pensionnat. Là. C'est eux autres qui ont pris le train avant. Ils ont fait embarquer ces enfants-là avant moi, en avant de moi. Puis, à la fin, quand tous les enfants sont embarqués, moi, j'étais content. Je pensais que je ne partirais pas. Mais je ne savais pas que je partais, par exemple. C'est ça qui est pire, je ne savais pas. J'étais bien habillé, mes parents, ma mère m'avait acheté des beaux linges, tout ça. Là. Puis je ne savais pas que je partais. Puis quand le train des enfants sont tous embarqués, je pensais que je ne partais pas non plus. Ma mère aussi, c'est ça qu'elle disait. Elle était contente que je ne parte pas. Mais avant que le train parte, l'accompagnateur, le frère, il a débarqué. Puis j'ai eu le malheur d'être le premier sur le bord. Il est venu me chercher, il m'a pris par les mains, m'a arraché à ma mère, puis il dit, viens-t'en, toi, viens-t'en parce qu'il y a encore de la place. Il y a encore une place, c'est toi qui vas l'occuper. C'est comme ça que je suis parti la première année. Puis ça a duré 12 ans. Je suis parti à chaque année comme ça. Pour m'aller dans 2 pensionnats. Puis ici, on a juste 15 minutes. Je ne peux pas vous raconter tout ce que j'ai eu pendant ces 12 ans-là. Mais je vais peut-être juste vous raconter une chose qui m'est arrivée au pensionnat. Dans le deuxième pensionnat, là, j'ai trouvé que j'étais assez bien. Parce que là, j'étais rendu plus grand, j'étais plus vieux, puis j'étais capable de me défendre. Mais dans l'autre, j'étais trop jeune. C'est là qu'il m'est arrivé toutes sortes de choses. Il y en a un, là, je vais vous raconter parce que je ne peux pas tout vous raconter. Je vais vous raconter seulement ça. Quand on est arrivé au pensionnat, le soir, avant d'aller se coucher, là, on nous faisait prendre, tout le monde, tous ceux qui étaient là, tous ceux qui arrivaient là, nous faisaient prendre une douche. Il fallait qu'on laisse laver. Après ça, ils nous peignaient pour voir si on avait des poux sur la tête, tout ça. Là. Puis, comme moi, j'étais avec les tout petits, les plus jeunes, dans la douche, qu'est-ce qu'on faisait là? On se lavait, mais le frère, il venait s'asseoir à la porte de la douche, puis là, il nous examinait. Ça, c'est la première fois quand j'ai été au pensionnat. Puis par après, plus tard, durant l'année, il faisait la même chose. Il nous examinait. Mais j'ai compris par après pourquoi est-ce qu'il nous examinait. Parce que là, le frère nous touchait partout. Partout, sur notre sexe, dans l'anus, tout, là. Même des fois, là, il faisait des mouvements de va-et-vient sur notre sexe, sur notre pénis. Puis, qu'est-ce qu'on faisait? Aujourd'hui, je regrette d'avoir fait ça, là. C'est parce qu'on se battait pour ne pas être le dernier à sortir de la douche. Il y avait un petit jeune, un plus petit que nous autres, il n'était pas gros, tout frère. Là. Il venait je pense qu'il venait du Lac-Simon. C'est lui qui prenait tout. Parce que nous autres, on était plus grands, un petit peu plus grands, puis un petit peu plus forts que lui. On le poussait pour qu'il reste en arrière et que ce soit lui qui passe en dernier. Sans ça, là, on subissait des agressions, des attouchements comme ça. C'est lui qui passait en dernier, c'est lui qui suivait, qui recevait les services du frère. Ça, c'est une des choses que je m'en souviens encore. C'est ça, je commence à la sortir. Il y avait d'autres choses aussi, mais ça serait trop long pour en parler ici, là, avec le temps qui nous est accordé. 12 ans de pensionnat et 15 minutes pour le dire, là, c'est vraiment trop condensé, trop difficile. Ce que je voulais aussi dire ici, quand on parle de réconciliation, je ne sais pas. Moi, là, je pense que je ne pourrais pas faire une réconciliation tout de suite. Pourquoi? C'est parce qu'il y a tellement de choses qui me disent que on n'est pas prêt encore pour aller se réconcilier. Pas plus tard que ce matin, quand je me suis levé, j'ai ouvert la télévision, puis j'ai écouté les nouvelles sur RDI. Il y avait justement un reportage sur la cérémonie du lever du soleil. Il y a une fille qui faisait son reportage. Puis elle a été très respectueuse envers notre cérémonie. On lui a demandé de ne pas être trop près du lieu de la cérémonie. Elle s'est éloignée. Puis elle a parlé de l'événement qu'on fait aujourd'hui, cette semaine. Elle, je l'ai trouvée respectueuse. Mais, par après, quand le reportage est terminé, le chef de pipette, je ne sais pas comment il s'appelle, pourtant je le vois tous les jours à la TV. Lui, il a terminé le reportage en disant, bon, mesdames et messieurs, là, c'est déjà entendu que vous allez attendre. Attendez-vous à recevoir encore la même chose pendant plusieurs années en avant. Ça, là, quand j'ai entendu ça, là, je me suis dit, ah non, là, je ne suis pas capable de me réconcilier tout de suite. Je ne suis pas capable, je regrette, mais je ne peux pas. À cause qu'on entend des choses de ce genre-là. Je ne suis pas capable de me réconcilier avec ce monde-là. Puis une autre chose aussi, qui me dit encore, qui me montre encore que je ne suis pas capable, je ne peux pas me réconcilier, c'est que la semaine passée, 2 semaines, j'ouvre un journal. Il parlait des enfants disparus dans les pensionnats. C'était marqué 3000 enfants autochtones disparus. Puis j'ouvre, je lis l'article au complet. Puis à la fin de l'article, en surimpression, c'était écrit en petit caractère. Je vois pas, je commence à lire, puis là j'ai dit, ah non, ça se peut pas. Là. Ils veulent qu'on se réconcilie avec qu'est-ce qu'ils ont écrit. L'article disait, c'est un certain, comment est-ce qu'il appelait ça, surintendant adjoint au ministère des Affaires indiennes. Il a travaillé de 1912 en 1923 à peu près, ou 32. Il a travaillé comme surintendant adjoint au ministère des Affaires indiennes. Ce monsieur-là, il disait, pour éliminer, comment est-ce que je ne me rappelle plus, là, je suis trop... pour éliminer le problème indien, il faut passer par l'éducation. Il faut que ces enfants-là là, soient retirés de leurs parents. Parce que ces groupes de personnes-là, c'était des sauvages, des arriérés. Ça, c'est un surintendant des Affaires indiennes qui a dit ça. Puis la deuxième chose, ce qu'il a dit dans sa citation, il disait qu'il fallait enlever des enfants de leur famille, de leur communauté. Pour qu'ils puissent aller à l'école. Comment ça? Il y avait de la mauvaise influence de la part de leurs parents. Ces enfants-là, là, ça veut dire, moi, je recevais de la mauvaise influence de mes parents. C'est pour ça qu'ils m'ont emmené à l'école. Ça, là, j'accepte pas ça. J'ai encore une certaine chose ici en dedans qui me fait mal. En voyant ces affaires-là, là, je ne suis pas capable. Je regrette, mais je ne suis pas capable de dire pardon. Puis là, je me dis, c'est à eux autres qu'il faut qu'ils viennent me voir. Il faut qu'ils me disent, Édouard, je te pardonne ce que je t'ai fait. Oui, pardonne-moi, il faut qu'ils me disent, je te pardonne-moi. Puis, autre chose également, là, tout ce que j'ai vécu, aujourd'hui, je pense que je l'ai laissé en héritage à mes enfants. Avant ça, je n'étais pas capable de dire à mes enfants que je les aimais. J'ai suivi une thérapie, 2 thérapies. Après la 2e thérapie, là, j'ai été capable de dire à mes enfants que je les aimais. Même à ma femme aussi, j'avais de la misère de lui dire que je l'aimais. Aujourd'hui, presque à tous les jours, je lui dis je t'aime. Puis ici aujourd'hui, devant tout le monde, devant le commissaire Little Child, je demande pardon à ma femme de lui avoir fait connaître la souffrance, la violence que j'ai faite à elle. Je lui demande pardon ici. Puis je lui dis encore, je l'aime, je t'aime, ma femme. Je m'étais dit tantôt, avant de m'en venir ici, je vais essayer de... Je pleure pas devant tout le monde. C'est gênant pour un homme. Parce qu'on m'avait dit, moi aussi, une fois, un homme ne pleure jamais. Alors là, je ne suis pas capable. Il faut que ça sorte. Tout à l'heure, j'écoutais des personnes qui étaient en avant de moi, qui témoignaient. Puis je les trouvais tellement courageux. Pour pas qu'ils se mettent à pleurer comme moi, là. Des hommes, des femmes. Il y a une madame tantôt qui a passé avant moi, là. Pendant qu'elle parlait, j'ai vu ma mère en elle. C'est ma mère que j'ai vue pendant qu'elle parlait. Moi, j'ai perdu mes 2 parents. J'ai perdu toute ma famille. Je suis tout seul maintenant, avec ma femme et mes enfants. Puis quand cette femme-là a parlé, là, j'ai vu que c'était ma mère qui était là. Les souffrances que ma mère a connues, elle aussi, elle l'a connue. Je voudrais dire merci à cette madame-là de m'avoir fait penser à ma mère. Là, je pensais que j'allais avoir le temps de dire tout ce que j'avais à dire. Parce que mon épouse aussi m'a demandé si elle pouvait parler, prendre peut-être 1 minute ou 2 de mon temps. Elle avait quelque chose à ajouter, elle aussi. Je pense que je vais y laisser le temps qui me reste. Il reste à peine 1 minute et demie. Je vais y laisser le temps. Elle veut rendre hommage à quelqu'un. Margot.
Oui, Marguerite Petitquay, Dijnikazon. Je m'appelle Marguerite Petitquay, puis je viens de Wemutashi. Puis moi, ce que je voulais parler de quelqu'un, c'est quelqu'un qui nous a ouvert les portes pour qu'on puisse avoir ce qu'on fait là aujourd'hui. Je me dis que c'est grâce à lui. Puis on ne l'a jamais dit, on ne l'a jamais mentionné. On ne l'a jamais honoré. C'est quelqu'un-là, là, il n'a jamais pu parler de ce qu'il a vécu lui aussi dans un pensionnat. Aujourd'hui, il serait là peut-être à nous conter ce qu'il a fait pour pouvoir ouvrir les portes, pour qu'on puisse se libérer un peu de la souffrance qu'on a traînée pendant des années. Parce qu'on souffre encore. On a encore de la souffrance. Ce qui se passe dans nos communautés. Moi, j'ai trouvé courageuse la jeune femme là, qui a parlé que nos leaders, là, ils ont besoin ici de se guérir, de prendre soin des autres. Parce qu'ils ne nous aident pas de ce côté-là. Puis je vais nommer la personne. Je pense qu'il y a pas mal de personnes qui le connaissent. C'est Robert Boucher. Il a passé à la télévision. Il avait fait un témoignage à la télévision. Puis c'est grâce à lui maintenant qu'on est capable de pouvoir parler de nos souffrances. Puis je rends hommage à Robert Boucher. Je l'ai trouvé courageux. On va continuer comme ça. Elle s'est supportée de l'un de l'autre, elle s'est donné le courage. Elle s'est donné la main. Elle se dire bonjour, à chaque fois qu'on est capable de se dire bonjour. Que ce soit de la main, que ce soit un sourire. À un moment donné, moi, j'avais dit, aujourd'hui, ça va être la journée du sourire. À chaque fois que je rencontrais quelqu'un, je souriais en passant en auto ou bien dans de la main. Puis je vous envoie la main. Puis je vous embrasse. Merci beaucoup.
Je voulais justement dire aussi là, que je suis traducteur ici en Québec français. Puis tout ce que j'attends ici, là, moi, je le dis dans ma langue pour que les autres puissent me comprendre. Puis là, je suis en train de regarder mon ami là-bas, mon chum, là, je vois qu'il cherche beaucoup d'ouvrages pour traduire ce que je suis en train de lui dire. Merci, Richard. Tu étais un bon copain.
Thank you very much to all of those brave individuals who've just come forward with their lived experiences to share with us a bit of their pain, but also to encourage us in many different ways. For example, we heard about, through poems, a powerful way through poems, individuals experience. And then we also witness strength from the survivors, the former students, either as they talk about it or as they show us their own strength. That's very encouraging to each of us. I know that the first speaker really put the question to us right off the bat when she asked us, what is reconciliation? Because as for her, she said it was to be able to live in peace from now on, from this day forward. And then we had a Gigi, I won't say number 31, but Gigi came, said, I've invited my grandson and my two sisters so I can offer them the gift of my story. The gift of my story. And she ended up with having talked about having to live in fear, because that's what she learned as a little girl, was to learn about fear and to live with it all of her life. But still ended up with a poem about, this is my story, as she told it through a poem, and acknowledged her brothers. And I have to pick out one of them, Billy, because he was a good hockey player, she said. And I'll come back to that a bit later. Then a very courageous individual who was able to dig deep enough to show or shed some light on some incest in the family. Very courageous individual to take it on like that. Because it was very hurtful. He said it broke my happiness when it happened the first time, and it hurt even more the second time. And this caused tremendous confusion for him all his life. In fact, he doesn't even remember, he said, he doesn't know how many times that I was raped, but I don't want the money. It wasn't the money I wanted. He said, I wanted my life back. I wanted my life back. So these were very brave individuals. Then a comparison about residential school with prison. Comparison with prison, including being given a number and clothes that were the same as everybody else. And how that causes one to feel abandoned. Abandonment, as we've heard over and over again, is a very serious impact. As she said, it destroyed many of us as children. No love at all, only hurt. But yet, she too was able to dig within her own past to be able to say, what wasn't taken away was my spirit to survive. The spirit to survive, to get out of here alive. But also, a very important reflection, I think, from her and others who have lifted up their children, have uplifted their children, because the power of children, because this is a story about children, those that were taken, but also to say, I thought of taking my life many times, but I couldn't do it when I looked at my children. I couldn't do it because of my children. So that was a very important instruction or teaching, I think. But also she concluded by saying, I'm now stronger because of my healing journey. And we've heard about strength, haven't we, over and over again through these last 4 days. And then a bearer of hope. I want to offer you hope. He said, but he wanted to reflect on what that means, is to call for behavioral change, a change of behavior where the oppression must end. In that way, we have to make an effort to begin a dialogue with Canada, to change to a way that's respectful. One of the ways he, of course, mentioned was to respect the treaties. That's one way we can live this out. But also, he posed an important question to not only us as the Commission, but to the rest of Canada when he asked, why don't we include all Indigenous peoples in this effort? Because it's about values of peace, respect, and friendship, isn't it? Those are the values for the reason on which we should do that. And an important reflection on education being critical. And Edouard, he said, I don't know about this reconciliation because I'm not ready, but yet he showed us reconciliation. He showed us reconciliation in 2 ways. He said that I couldn't tell my children, I love you. I couldn't tell them before, but now I can. Now I can tell my children I love them. But even more courageous, I think, in a way, to in front all of us ask, in front of you, I want to ask forgiveness here from my wife. Now that's reconciliation, I would think, at least a part of reconciliation. And he didn't need to apologize for shedding a tear. He said man is not supposed to cry. So I thought I would share a story with him, Edouard. I heard a story once about a young woman who was contemplating suicide over and over again but couldn't do it because one day her grandfather noticed something was wrong, she said. My grandfather saw me and he knew something was wrong. And he said to her, "Come here, my child, and sit beside me." And it was raining outside, she said, and he was sitting under the pump house, under the roof. And there was a garden in front. And he said to her, "Look at the rows of potatoes here. And look at the leaves. As each raindrop hits the leaves, they're dancing. See, the leaves are dancing. Because the raindrops are washing away the dirt from the leaves of the potatoes in each row." So she said, "I looked, and I could see the leaves were dancing." And he looked at me, she said, "You too need to cleanse yourself sometime. And the pain that you're hiding within yourself, that you're suppressing within you, the anger, has to be cleaned away." The way we do that, my grandfather said, she said, was to be able to cry. Because when you shed tears, you're washing away the pain from your heart. And he said it causes your heart to dance. So, Edouard, wherever he is, thank you for showing us about the dancing heart in front of us. That too is reconciliation. So, thank you to all of them who came this afternoon. And I know from your applause, I saw you stand with your applause to the last speaker to thank him. And I add my thanks to your applause, to each and every one of them. But I reflected back to you to thank you, each of you, for another great day. Hai hai kinanas na.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to be getting going with the final aspects of our program in just a few minutes. So if you just want to sit tight while we change the tables out and make a couple quick changes up on the stage, we'll be right back with you. Mesdames et messieurs, on fait quelques échanges avec l'étage et on va revenir dans quelques minutes. Merci.